Your presence are among us. We ask that you help us today to guide us, to open our hearts to all of those who are in need. We pray this through Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. We have a small enough group that's folksy enough. Maybe what we can do is just do a short introduction so everybody kind of knows one another. I'm Deacon Jim Van Loan. I'm a deacon at Blessed Sacrament Church. This is my wife, Ann Van Loan. She obviously also goes to Blessed Sacrament Church. She is a director of Western Resources for Independent Living, and she'll certainly share some of her experiences as we progress here this morning. Maybe we'll just start with you, Ann.
Okay. I'm Ann Lyon. I attend Our Lady of Sacred Heart Church in Martinsville.
I'm Ray Kreisman, and I represent Habitat for Humanity.
I'm Lori Arthur. I'm from St. John Parish in Custer.
I'm Lori Halstrom. I'm from the Westerner Catholic newspaper, and I attend Cathedral Parish.
I'm Mary Ann Fryan from Sacred Heart at Phillip.
I am Father John Hine, and I'm the pastor at St. Anthony's in Buffalo, and I have 3 mission parishes.
Sister?
Eleanor Solon, Benedictine. I live in our new monastery up the hill. Lived in this complex many years. I'm the pastor's secretary at Blessed Sacrament Church in Rapid City, and also more or less like a parish assistant. And I try to believe that I helped that huge place kind of run a little bit more smoothly.
Thank you, sister.
I'm Christy Light, and I attend Our Lady of Perpetual Help Cathedral.
I'm Frances Williams, and I also attend the Cathedral.
I'm Vivian Altaveros, and I am
I'm Luann Leisher, and I attend St. John the Evangelist in Fort Pierce.
I'm Colleen Flynn, and I attend St. Joseph's in Gregory.
Paul Arthur, Blessed Sacrament.
Mary Arthur, Blessed Sacrament.
I'm John Apple from Our Lady of Sorrows in Kyle.
Mary Reynolds. This is Mary for St. Joseph's in Gregory.
Mary here, St. Mary's in Isabel.
Amy Joy, I'm the Joseph Commission, and I attend St. Joseph.
And the bishop has his mouth full, and we all know who he is anyway. I think the bishop set the tone for us this morning in the sense of what we're about to discuss in terms of how we respond to the needs of the poor. And the first slide I have, basically, it says God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male, female, he created them, and God blessed them. And as the bishop referred to, Catholic teaching says that we are all images of God, which means that we are all equal, that we share in that kingdom of God's. But it isn't always the case, it seems, in our societies, that there is division among us. And unfortunately, that creates many conflicts and problems within our society. The Bible, as the bishop told us, teaches us many things about those who are disenfranchised, who are poor. I don't know if you have any idea of how many times the Bible references the poor and injustice, but it does it 2,000 times. So it is a very significant part of our whole foundation as Christians. What I've tried to do in this slide, if you can see it, is to really define that there are 3 types of poverty that exist within our communities. There's emergency needs. Clearly, there are families who lack food, and it may be in a sort of a continuing basis that they go from day to day without adequate nourishment or food. In some cases, it may be that they just do not have enough resources to last a month, and so they parcel it out as best they can. Lack of shelter, And there are many who we've heard, particularly as the Great Recession rolled on, were living in their automobiles and under bridges and other places. And even though I think our economy has improved, it hasn't necessarily eliminated that need. And I think at least in Rapid City, if you look at the Cornerstone Rescue Mission, the need continues to grow, and it always outnumbers the resources that are available. Lack of transportation. And in a rural diocese such as we have, it's certainly common that people become very isolated, particularly in rural areas, and without the resources to repair their automobile or to purchase the gas necessary, they become really isolated and suffering. The lack of health care. And there are many people, even in our diocese, in our communities, that go without the kind of health care that they really need, that gives them a better quality of life. The lack of clothing. One of the groups that we have in our parish is the Just Faith group, and we've been an organization that sort of has socially stayed together for about 3 years. And one of the things that we do is we provide adequate clothing for the Wilson School, which is located in the southern part of Rapid City. It's not necessarily considered part of the low-income community, although many of the students that go there are. So we staff that, or I shouldn't say staff, but clothe the closets so that the teachers who see children in need of maybe shoes or a sweatshirt or whatever, they have those resources available. The intermediate needs, sometimes it's just temporary shelter. And of course we have organizations like WAVY that help in those circumstances. But the need extends well beyond just those situations of abuse. Supplemental food. And of course the SNAP program is supposed to provide adequate food for those who qualify. Now it's important also to remember that it is just food, which means that if it's a mother with a child, it doesn't include diapers or anything of that nature. If it's the question of becoming or maintaining your hygiene, soap, none of those things qualify. It's simply food. And so in some cases, it isn't even through the month that families have to share that. Now we have school lunch programs, and that certainly helps with many of the youth. Temporary transportation is something that, again, there may be a circumstance where the car is broke down and they need to get to an appointment at a medical clinic, or whatever the circumstances are, they at least temporarily are immobilized. Seasonal clothing, again, it kind of refers back to the emergency needs, but there are children who miss school, and it isn't because they don't really want to become educated or they're not interested. It's simply that maybe they don't have the clothes necessary to be able to feel in a dignified way to attend school. So that might be lacking shoes, it could be lacking coats, etc. Utility assistance, and we all probably pay utility bills, and we know that that becomes a pretty significant part of our income that has to go to those things. And again, in many cases, people who have limited or no income really suffer from that and face the chances sometimes of having the utilities cut off. Now, there are laws that protect people in the wintertime to some extent from having their heat shut off, but there are times during the year that that happens and it becomes an insurmountable effort. I remember hearing a story on NPR not too long ago about a mother who was sharing that had happened to her, not in this area, and so she was trying to make the best of bad circumstances. And so she was telling her children that they all gathered in the living room, this is kind of like camping out, that we're just sort of sharing this. So it was a devastating thing, but she tried to make it a positive thing for her children. Long-term needs, job training obviously is something that we need to see a lot more of. That part of the problem that we have as a society and why people are kept in terms of limited income or no income is because they have limited skills. And so it's something that as a society we really need to make a commitment in our educational system and our job training programs. It's a situation that Society is only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. So as long as we have circumstances where people are unable to have the opportunity to truly contribute, it really diminishes us as a society. Permanent housing. Habitat for Humanity has done an incredible job in this area of providing housing for people. And I can't think of anything that would provide more dignity than the ability to say that I own my own house. Healthcare. And of course, healthcare, there's an economic barrier for many people, but it's also in some cases a geographic barrier. And so those are needs that sometimes are provided through parishes. I know Spearfish, for example, I think had a clinic that doctors would volunteer time and preventative care at least. And finally, child care. And there are many who obviously want to work but cannot work simply because the cost of child care outweighs what they might be able to receive in compensation. Obviously, I'm not a heavy PowerPoint user.
Should just be able to have a space.
Spacebar? There it is. Societal perceptions. Pope Francis says, the greatest danger in today's world, pervaded as it is by consumerism, is the desolation and the anguish born of a complacent yet covetous heart, the feverish pursuit of frivolous pleasures, and the blunted conscience. Whenever our interior life becomes caught up in its own interest, our concerns, there is no longer room for others, no place for the poor. God's voice is no longer heard. The quiet joy of His love is no longer felt, and the desire to do good fades. This is a very real danger for believers too. Many pray fall to it and end up resentful, angry, and listless. That is no way to live a dignified and fruitful life. It is not God's will for us, nor is it the life in the Spirit which has its source in the heart of the risen Christ. And of course the bishop had quoted that too. But I put this image up here, and it isn't anything to do really with the Baptist Church. It just happened to be an image that I found. But it says, obviously, laziness and poverty are cousins. And unfortunately, even I think in the Christian environments, there's almost a resentfulness sometimes of people who are not able to make it financially, who are poor. And I know from my own personal experiences, even in our own parish, that I've heard comments from members who basically are saying that the people on food stamps cheat and that they're lazy, etc., which is obviously runs completely counter to the teachings of Jesus Christ. And yet many people truly believe that they're following the word of Christ. So I think it's a situation that the Pope is truly telling us that we have to open our heart and we have to become more compassionate about those who don't have the same opportunities that we have. This slide I used because in South Dakota, the median household income is $48,846, and the median household cost is $46,572. And of course, below then it breaks down where those revenues or that income is distributed. This is a house with 2 adults and a child. So if both the parents are working, but they're receiving minimum wage, that means that their income is actually $30,160, or roughly $2,513 a month. Well, if it costs the average family $3,800, there's a significant deficit there, obviously. $1,300, over $1,300. Now, granted, there are food stamps and other supplemental programs, but in most cases, it doesn't meet that. It doesn't offset that $1,300. So the circumstances are that they have to cut back on something. And generally, those are things that may be more variable. It may be childcare. It may be health care. But they have to make choices, which is the point here. The Pope referred to the Catholic framework of economic life. It says the economy exists for the person, not for the person for the economy. All economic life should be shaped by moral principles. Economic choices and institutions must be judged by how they protect or undermine the life and dignity of the human person, support the family, and serve the common good. A fundamental moral measure of any economy is how the poor and the vulnerable are faring. All people have the right to life and to secure the basic necessities of life, i.e. food, clothing, shelter, education, health care, safety, environment, economic security. All people have the right to economic initiative, to productive work, to just wage, and benefits to decent working conditions, as well as to organize and join unions or other associations. All people, to the extent that they are able, have a corresponding duty to work responsibly, to provide the needs for their families, and an obligation to contribute to the broader society. In economic life, free markets have both clear and advantages and limits. Government has an essential responsibility and limitations. Voluntary groups have irreplaceable roles, but cannot substitute for the proper working of market and the just policies of a state. Society has a moral obligation, including government actions where necessary, to assure the opportunity to meet basic human needs and pursue justice in economic life. Workers, owners, managers, stockholders, consumers are moral agents in economic life. By our choices, initiatives, creativity, and investment, we enhance or diminish economic opportunity, community life, and social justice. The global economy has moral dimensions and human consequences. Decisions on investments, trade, aid, and development should protect human life and promote human rights, especially for those most in need wherever they might be on this globe. Pope Francis, in his Joys of the Gospel, says we cannot passively and calmly wait in our church buildings. Catholic parishes have the capacity to transform lives, enabling others to live in dignity. It begins with a handful of parishioners who, enlightened and energized others to become evangelists. This picture, I'm not sure how many of you might have seen this picture before, but it was from an artist in Canada. And he made this as an image of Christ. So it's Christ the homeless. And if it doesn't show in this picture, but if you happen to be able to pan down to his feet, there are actually holes in his feet. So it is representation of Christ as a homeless person. And of course in the background we see the church. There is an image of Pope Francis blessing a copy of this, which I thought was pretty touching. Are you ready to make a difference? Using your gifts and passion to serve others. Imagine the transforming that would happen in our families, church, and community if we all took the time to do what God uniquely designed each of us to do in order to serve others. Whether you have lots of time to volunteer each week or only a few hours every once in a while, consider making the kind of difference that only you can make. You'll love the way that God uses you to serve Him and others. So the next steps, if you are ready to begin to make a difference in your parish and community, then here are some suggestions. Ask others what they perceive as needs. Identify those areas of need which seemed most pressing. Enlist others to help address that need. Sometimes when we come to our parishes, it just seems kind of overwhelming. But one of the things that at least we at Blessed Sacrament had discovered was a program sponsored by the Catholic bishops called Just Faith. And I think some of the other people here might have gone through that. Fort Pierre is one. It is a situation that really makes a commitment of time, but it is so enlightening to take that journey, because you not only read books that really expose you to things that are going on, not just in this country, but around the world, and the inequities that occur, but it also requires some immersion. In other words, that you go out and actually, you're not serving in a soup kitchen, you're actually trying to immerse yourself in a situation, whether that might be an Indian reservation or some other area within our diocese, let's say, that you can truly feel the touch of those who don't have it as well as we do. What I'd like to do now is to turn this over to my wife Ann, who will talk more about some of the resources that exist here. And how some parishes might be able to tap into that.
That's okay, honey. I'll take over.
I am technically challenged.
Test 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. All right. First of all, if we're talking about social justice, let's talk about the correct language that we need to use when we're talking about people with disabilities. So, Jim, will you hand these out? I'm not going to go over all of them because you all can read and you all, I don't want to take the time. I am Ann Van Loan. I'm the CEO of Western Resources for Independent Living. We just changed our name. It was Western Resources for Disabled Independence. Guess what? Disabled does not work. I mean, it was such a negative connotation that after 13 years of fighting that, I finally was able to get the board to change it. So we are now Western Resources for Independent Living. Please note the people first language, because it is so important. I have to tell you, 13 years ago when I started out, I used the negative language. There's no room for it now. What Western Resources does is that we work with people with significant disabilities. We have 17 counties in which we cover, mostly all of West River. And I was just notified that now they're looking at us to take over the reservations as well, which I would love to do because there is such a need. Our mission is to keep people in their own homes as long as we can, keeping them independent for as long as we can. Now that may mean some aids to come in, but they're not in nursing homes, they're not in institutions. So this is so important for us. Some of the things that we do is advocacy. We advocate for people. It may mean Social Security. It may mean trying to get them some tickets for transportation. It's just endless what we advocate for. We do peer support. Oh my gosh, they help. They need to talk to someone. That's where all of you can come in. You can all talk to people who are in need. Now, sometimes their disability does not show. You'll know. In your heart, the Lord lets you know when someone is in need of just talking, just sharing. We do information and referral. We're not doctors, we're not lawyers. So we refer them to the person that needs to be their advocate then. I tell you, we do so much. The state, we do get state funds, and we get some federal funds. The state pays us roughly $325,000 a year to cover 17 counties in western South Dakota. I say they give ducks more money than they do people with disabilities. So when I hire someone, let me tell you, it has to be somebody with a lot of heart, who cares very much. They don't stay very long if they don't care, because the money's not that great, needless to say. Let's pretend now that a family comes in. A family comes in. They've been living out of their car. This happens frequently. What do we do? What do you do? They don't even have any food. They have little ones. They have some teenagers. Let's throw in a few teenagers. Let's throw in a few teenage boys. Okay? First of all, they're hungry. We need to address that right away. Have you tried any churches? No, we just got to town. We don't know any churches. Youth and Family Services. You know, they have some breakfast in the morning, but that's in the summer. And that's from ages little to 18. We have the mobile food bank, but that only comes once a month. DSS has emergency SNAP or food stamps. That usually takes about a week. Oh, shoot. Community Action has food, and they do hand out food in emergencies. Cornerstone Mission, of course, has their daily meals. They can go to the Cornerstone Mission. How intimidating is that sometimes? I mean, I've been on the board of Cornerstone Mission, and I love what they do. But you take a family who's timid, have nothing. You know, the bishop mentioned stinking thinking. Sometimes I can't help but look at them and understand why they have stinking thinking. They have nothing right now. It might have been health that drove them away into poverty. You never know for sure. A lot of family circumstances will happen. Okay, so what do? I need to get them in a motel. I need to get them into Cornerstone Mission. What do I do? Okay. I tell them that they can go to the Cornerstone Mission. Now, the women's mission will not allow them in, and they will not allow the 14-year-old child. The 14-year-old child, sorry, you're going to have to go to the men's mission, because we can't have 14-year-olds in the women's mission. That's why a lot of times you find a lot of people, families, who opt out and going to the men's mission because they can't stay at the women's mission.
That's a 14-year-old boy you're talking about?
Yes.
If it was a girl, she could?
She could. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Can I speak to that as well?
Yes, please.
I'm Tom. I'm the Associate Director of Cornerstone.
Yes,
That is the huge gap,
it is.
and it's horrible. And what we end up with, because we don't want to, a 14-year-old also isn't going to be able to check into the men's mission alone. So we end up with mom and 14-year-old boy on the floor of the lobby of the men's mission until we can figure something out. So, and you're hitting the gap.
Yes, and I thank you. I thank you for, and jump in, any of you that have anything. Wavy is the same thing. They're 16-year-olds. But where do you send them? What do you do? This is a family that have really hit upon hard times. No real fault of their own.
Could I ask, why are those rules that way? Are we worried about a teenager molesting a child, or what is the concern now?
Well, there's a lot of abuse. They're coming from a lot of domestic abuse. They're coming from... and you can speak to that too, but...
We've got a couple of, they're over 18 young ladies at the women's home right now, but they're processing mentally at like a 15-year-old level. There's even, our cutoff age for a boy at the women's home is 12. We've got a 12-year-old boy now that we're having to talk because these 18-year-old girls, and that's a very specific instance that we have now, but that sort of illustrates why we have a male cutoff age at the women and children's home. And it's that and single dads is the gap that we get stuck. We just don't have a solution for it.
And remember, a disability can happen just that quick. Just that quick. Okay. Lack of transportation. Well, guess what? There is none. Virtually there is none. I have some transit tickets, dial-a-ride tickets for people over the age of 60 that I happen to get through a group, Pennington County Council on Aging. It's just so difficult. I get calls every day wanting, I need to get to the doctor. I need to get to the hospital. Hey, I just don't have any transportation for you. Oh boy, lack of health care. And Community Health of the Black Hills charges $10 per visit.
15.
15 now? I'm sorry, I was on the board back when.
That's
15.
if you have zero income.
Just tell me, if you have zero income, how in the heck do you pay for $15? If you have $15, you want to put something in your tummy or your family. I know. The other option is, of course, the emergency room. They can't turn you away. But let's just say that you have not immediate surgery needed, but you will need surgery. They're not going to do that. They'll postpone that surgery until there's some money in the bank. I have many times called Regional and talked to Regional, and Regional has allowed somebody, and Rick, maybe you can talk to this a little bit, but they're a tough group.
Just as an aside, Regional last year gave away $53 million in charity care and bills that just went when you just written off.
And that's mostly emergency.
Well, it's emergency plus emergency procedures. Elective stuff is very hard to get in this society, and you're right about that. And it involves both the providers and the facilities.
So you're saying that they have to do that because you come to ER, they can't turn you away, but they don't have any foundation of their own which would help indigent people?
They do a lot of them for indigent people, but they don't do elective things.
Statutorily, the county poor relief is also supposed to provide those services, but it would become astronomically financially
Impossible.
Just would go
There's
sky high.
very little done for county poor relief.
But they just don't have the money.
Care, but it's because they have to. I mean, it's mandated. I'm asking, do they have any type of foundation that they're in their own system that helps pay for that? I mean,
That 53 million comes from the overall budget.
right, but it's not specifically targeted then. I mean, some hospitals have this group that works to get donations from
We
whoever.
have that too, but it's part of the overall picture. 53 million is in the vicinity of 5% of the gross revenue of the company, and in the vicinity of 10% of the net. So, and that includes money coming from the foundations. And you could say, hell, give away 25%. There's never enough. But 53 million is a lot more than anybody else is giving away in western South Dakota.
But we have to.
Absolutely.
Because they have no other place to go when it's significant.
Absolutely agree.
And many times you just have to go, I mean, they have to ask for poor relief. Yes. And I once was a county commissioner, and I have to tell you, in Pennington County, I have to tell you that they just don't have the money. These are major, major surgeries. Transplants, there's no way, and I don't think you do transplants at regional. Yeah, right. Lack of clothing. Oh my gosh. I had one little gal come in, and she had a t-shirt that she had worn for I don't know how long, and jeans that just, they were clean. Oh, they were very clean. But she had nothing. So the first thing I did was to get some vouchers for her to get some clothing. I tell you, she was so thankful. She was in tears. She was so thankful. Housing, oh boy. All right. Let's go to the intermediate and the long term of housing. I called just yesterday to find out Penn County Housing, what their waiting list was. 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years. We have some low-income guidelines, of course, that they have to abide by. They have to have a disability or elderly. 2 to 3 years. We have income-based housing too. That's few and far between. There's always a waiting list, always. And behavior management systems, they work with a lot of the emotional and mentally ill and mentally disabilities. Whoa, I can't believe after 13 years you fall back into it. But they do have some housing, but of course it's for disabilities of mental and emotional. I talked to you about the SNAP program and transportation. We do have LEAP. Jim mentioned LEAP, and that is the Low Income Energy Assistance Program. And they will pay for heating. Now, if you have electric heat, they'll pay for electric heat. If you have gas, they'll pay for gas. I have heard a number of times that if they only had wood burning, that they will get some wood for people. Now, mind you, this is if they have a house. There you go again. There's so much. We talk about medical too, and one of the things that I do a lot is Social Security disability. They come in, I can see that they not only have physical disabilities, but they have emotional disabilities as well. I have to say, have you applied for SSI or SSDI? Yes, but I was denied. Why were you denied? I didn't have enough medical. Have you seen anybody since you were denied? No, I don't have the money. I don't have the money to see anybody medical, any doctor's medical. Boy, that's tough. How do I prove you have a disability if you have no medical? Oh my gosh. So the first thing I try to do, we fill out the application. We send it in. State that there is no medical because they can't afford it. I have fought as much as 6 years for somebody to get Social Security. I mean, these are people that they want to work. They honestly, they truly do want to work, but they can't. I have just in the last month, I have a person that came in, 44 years old. Wife actually works for me in the adult day that we have. He had a stroke, 44 years old. It was a blood clot that came up his leg. It went through a hole in his heart that he did not know he had. It went through a hole in his heart. He is now 60% blind. He wants to go back to work. Oh my gosh, he wants to go back to work. His wife and he took care of the wife's mother and father, and their child is in our youth transition group because she has developmental disabilities. This girl is trying desperately to keep everything afloat. Father was at our adult day service. His health went down so bad, he's in a nursing home right now. So she has her mother who has very poor health, very, very poor health. The daughter who has developmental disabilities, and her husband now, who's going into surgery. You know, these are the things. I have to tell you, I get so angry when I hear, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I wrote down a bunch of them that it just really angers me. They are lazy. They can get a job. Oh, how they wish they could get a job. They don't want to work. They'd do anything to get off of the welfare rolls. Look at them, and they look perfectly healthy. Do not ever judge. Don't judge, lest thee be judged. Because I'll tell you, so many can come in and they look as healthy, healthier than I. Boy, do they have some emotional and mental and sometimes physical problems. So, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps, and they can too. Oh boy, that's an oldie. They can get some kind of a job. Oh yeah, at $7.25 an hour. And I hear this so often, and oh, the past is the past. Get on with it. Especially those with emotional and mental disabilities. They may have been raped, but I'm done. He says I'm done. Okay.
One of the things that parishes can do, and I don't think too many parishes do this, but St. Joseph's and Spearfish does, and Tammy Regal is the person who runs the St. Joseph Fund? Joseph Fund. So she's going to explain that program, and I think you all have an insert in your packet for that. Oh, I'll hand it.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to do this. Do it like that. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I'm Tammy Regals, and I've been working at St. Joseph's for 18 years. And we've, as long as I've known, had a Joseph Fund. And I'll tell you right now, I'm nervous. I'm not good at this. Yeah. I'm Tammy Regals from St. Joseph's, and as long as I've been there, we've had a Joseph Fund. And our Joseph Fund is a fund, it is a separate checking account that all monies that go into that help the transients or anybody who wishes to come in for help. And we get a lot of people referring them from the hospitals, the police station, and everywhere. I did have to put some, as you see, a lot of rules on it when I first started, just to keep not only me safe, but everybody safe, because we do get some scary people, but everybody, you know, is just there for help. It used to be that when we first started, it was kind of slow and low, and we would only give out like $150 per time when you come out. Also, when we give money for this, we ask that they have a background. We check their background with the police station, so they have no warrants or something that they're being looked for, which we've run into. But also that they take a budget counseling class when we're done after the first time they're helped. So if they do take that budget counseling class, that will help them also. Right now, between Father Tyler and I, he really promotes it in our church. And also they also did a section of it during our Generations of Faith and promoted our Joseph Fund also. And so it's really, really well funded, and it's only funded by our parish. And so, you know, we can get up to $300-400 a time for these people. And we just ask them to bring in, like, you know, if they have a disconnect notice, we help them. We've helped them with bus tickets and get them back home or wherever they need to go. We also give food. We, I don't know how often we do it now. We buy $25 gift certificates to our local grocery stores. And so whenever somebody comes in and they've been to the food pantry that Spearfish has, or we also have a commodities in Spearfish, we have a gift certificate. We can just give them and they can go to the grocery store, which is really nice. We also give them, you can see in the packet that we give them a card for help numbers. So there's lots of different, Spearfish is wonderful about helping people in need. In our community, we have the Good Shepherd's Clinic. As they were talking about, they can go for medical care. In Spearfish, in St. Joseph's, they also do a Clothe a Kid. So if they were talking about a family comes in and their kid needs clothing or something, I can call the women in charge. They will get me clothing for these kids and have them. We also have our Catholic daughters who do love bundles, and those include a towel and a washcloth, toothpaste, deodorant, and they're all bundled up, and we can give those away to them. And we also have, like I said, the food pantry, and Catholic Social Services also comes to St. Joseph. So if they do need someone to talk to, we're able to help them that way also. So or no, our Joseph Fund, I thought everybody had one. I didn't know everybody didn't have a special fund in their parish to do this, but.
Is there a place where they can use the towels and washcloths and the toothbrushes and stuff?
No, we don't have that. In the summer, I would usually send them down to the city park because I know they do have shower facilities and stuff down there, but we don't have that. No.
Families that are desperate use public restrooms.
Okay.
Now, when you say Joseph, is that because of your parish name, or is this some nationwide?
No, it's just a checking account Joseph Fund that we started.
In your community oral health care, is that dentists that provide free care, or what?
And that's in Rapid, yeah. That's out of Rapid City. That's out of Rapid City, that one
It's
is.
part of the community health.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to go to Rapid, or?
Yeah, I would have to get them, our transient, Prairie Transient will send them to Rapid.
Community Health Center in Rapid City.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In Rapid, there are services like the Hope Center, which actually do some of these same things in terms of providing, as I understand it, showers and lockers and places for people to go during the day.
Oh, wow, that's
And
good.
they're going to mailing address in case,
Yeah.
you know, they're applying for jobs so that there's a place that they facilitate.
Another, and you can see in the packet too, I put 4 envelopes in our church envelope system so that we have a collection 4 times a year for this fund, to fund it. And then at Thanksgiving, our monies all go to the Ministerial Association. And then we also have online giving, so they can do also online giving for it. Yes?
Are you on 211 when someone calls their area when they know that you existed?
I don't think so. We are very well known. They send, I mean, people come from Sturgis and everywhere. I mean, it's, yeah, they know who we are.
But you should get on to 211.
Yep.
Okay.
It is a phone number, you dial 211 like 411 or 911 and 211 has information
On that.
for people calling in about this very kind of thing.
Okay.
And in Spearfish, because we don't have a Cornerstone Rescue Mission or Loving or, you know, anything like that, there was a real unmet need, and that's where the St. Joseph Fund fills the gap. And I think what's neat about it is it's a model that you can use really anywhere. So if you're out in the prairie somewhere and you know, you're dealing with people that need to have help, something like this can fill that gap, and you don't have these wonderful organizations in Phillip or wherever, you know, and so I think.
Any other, yes?
Did you, on the gift cards for local grocery stores, did you put any restrictions on those, how that can be used?
Ours, I went to the different stores, and like the store we purchased them from, those gift cards can only be used for food and toiletries. They do have alcohol and stuff in there, but they don't allow that, and that's why we chose the store, because we were scared of that. Before, we used to just send checks to that store, and it would have a memo in there. It said, you know, food only, and they knew it was coming because I talked to them, but the gift cards are really a lot easier, because I write the checks, but I don't sign them. Somebody else signs them in the office, so there's always 2 people there for the safety of it. Is there anything else? I think we're done then. Yeah.
You said that there is an online giving.
Mm-hmm.
And you set that up through your church's website?
Yep. So when they go in and they choose our online giving, there's like 5 different choices, and the Joseph Fund is one of them, and that money stays specifically in there for that. Mm-hmm. And they also put it in the bulletin, like last month, we did $3,000. We gave $3,000 away to help, and so people in our parish know how it's being used and how much is being used. Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of observations. You know, we're talking about the income levels of the poor. It is very typical for people in these families to have $10,000 to $15,000 in income a year, frequently at tops. They frequently end up with a couple of kids, sometimes single parent, very frequently. So when it comes to housing, if they can't get on to some form of Section 8 or something like that, they're kind of faced with wandering down the street and asking people if they can live in a corner of their unfinished basement. I mean, that's not very good. When you talk about food stamps, I have heard the same bull that you have from people in line at Safeway. What do people get for food stamps? About $400 a month, or $25 a month.
If it's emergency, it's only $32.
That's right.
Hello?
I mean, this amounts to $1.25 a meal, roughly, per person. I don't know about you, I'm buying more than $1.25 to eat, probably because they're too heavy, but, you know, it's kind of a tough situation. We charge sales tax on food and clothing $1.01. What kind of crap is that? It just passes more of the cost on to these people. So these are big problems.
One more question real quick.
The last institution, what facilities they have, it's just like where to go to Washington, University, where you go to cook food. You have to always
So you have to buy processed food that's more expensive.
But you
And I have
can't
to say that the
on
public
food
schools
stamps.
do a great job too,
That's right.
of helping kids. What do you say?
Our session is ended, so I can't remember what comes next, but the timekeeper says we're done.
We've got a 10-minute break, and we're going to 11:20. It's time.